Hi! In this video, we're gonna be starting to create the hair of our character, finally. But before starting, I just want to say some stuff. And the first thing is, hairs are too personal for each character. Which means you can have a character that has curly hair, or straight hair, or even wavy hair. The length also changes. It can be long, short, or even bald. But what I want to say is that you can use this technique to create some other type of hairs for your character, such as mustaches, beards, and maybe some other hairs. Having that said, you can follow this video and follow the same idea for creating the hair, even if it's not the same hairstyle or same hair type. But I should say that I'm not an expert, and I have no idea how to create a rig for longer hairs. I only use shape keys for that. The second thing that I want to say is I'm gonna be using a native add-on from Blender called Add Curve Extra Objects, which gives us more options when talking about curved objects. And in my case, I'm gonna be using something similar to Spring to create curly wavy hair. And the third thing is I'm gonna be using curves for hair. I'm not gonna be using particles or something else. It's just gonna be curves and an object in general. It's not gonna be a particle that I have to grow and bake. No, it's gonna be something different, and it's gonna be something a bit more easier. So let's first enable this add-on and then start creating the hair, because I don't like to see my characters being bald. So here I have a default file on Blender, and I'm gonna be using this just as an example. So if I press Shift A and I go to curves, we're gonna be having just these options. But if I go to Edit, Preferences, and then I write Curve, we're gonna be seeing this little option here, Add Curve Extra Objects. It's the one we're gonna be using for this video. So make sure to enable this, save preferences, and then close this. And now if we see the curve options, we're gonna be having much more objects that we can use to create our hair. So having that said, let's start creating the hair. So here I have the same file from the last videos, and here I have a drawing of the same character because I'm gonna be using this as a little reference to get the general idea of the hairstyle and make sure that I'm doing something right. So let's get straight to the point. I'm gonna press Shift A, Curves, Circle. I'm gonna be adding a little circle here, and I'm gonna be pressing slash on numpad, and then I'm gonna be adding another curve, which is gonna be curve spirals, spheric. This already looks like something kind of like a spring. I'm gonna be using this to create the curly hair. And here in these options, I'm gonna be changing some stuff according to my art style and to my taste. If your character doesn't have a curly hair, you can just add a path curve and use that. So you can skip this little part. I'm gonna be adding things just a bit, and I'm gonna be back. So this is my final editing. I'm gonna be using these settings. You can stop the video and take a look. I'm not gonna be touching this part because, as I said, it's too personal. And I'm gonna be editing this just a bit. Now we're gonna be editing this other little thing here. I'm gonna be seeing this. I'm gonna be pressing 7 on numpad to see the top view, and I'm gonna be pressing tab to go into the edit mode. I'm gonna be scaling it on x-axis like this. I'm gonna be selecting this vertex here, and I'm gonna be scaling it down just a bit like this. Same thing for this other one. I'm gonna be pressing A, S, Y. And I'm gonna be creating some subdivisions. So I'm gonna be pressing right click on mouse, subdivide, once again, subdivide. Now I'm gonna be selecting this vertex and this one, turning on this option, proportional editing, and moving a bit up like this. And now I'm gonna be selecting this vertex, rotating a bit, and I'm gonna be rotating all the other ones in a way that it looks like this, because this is gonna be the shape reference for our hair. You're gonna understand it better once we finish with this. Now I'm gonna be pressing tab, and I'm gonna be selecting this little curve here. I'm gonna go into data object. I'm gonna be going to the geometry, bevel, object, and this little object here, I'm gonna be selecting this one. So this is gonna be the hair reference for our hair. I'm gonna scale it down because as you can see, everything we do with this little object here is gonna be affecting this, and that's what I want. This is the shape reference. I'm gonna be adjusting it just a bit like this. I'm gonna scale it down just a bit too, like this, as Z. And I'm gonna be renaming this one as reference. And I'm gonna be renaming this as reference Felix hair shape. And I'm gonna keep the original name at the end of it. And I'm gonna be renaming this one to Felix hair curve spiral. I'm gonna be moving this a bit to the side like this, scale it down. I'm gonna press slash on numpad again. We're gonna be moving both of these objects to this side. Now I'm gonna be duplicating this and renaming this as like this. I'm gonna be moving this a bit to the back like this, and I'm gonna be using the duplicated one to create the hair. I'm gonna be moving this next to the head like this, scale it down, and basically adjust. Now I'm gonna be turning on one little thing here, which is the original folder with all the references, which has the model sheet, and I'm gonna be using this as a little reference. As you can see, I have this really strange object that I'm gonna be using as a size and shape reference. You don't need to do that, you can just follow your model sheet, but this is what I must feel comfortable using. This is just a cube with some subdivisions, according with a shape and hairstyle. You don't need to do that, it's just a personal thing. I'm gonna be selecting this curve, slash on numpad, and I'm gonna be going to the edit mode to do some little stuff. There are too many vertices here and I want just a few, so I'm gonna be selecting some of them. There are too many vertices here, so I selected some of them all the way up here, and I'm gonna be pressing delete vertices. So it's gonna remove some vertices and make it a bit cleaner. And this is gonna be making things a bit more lighter because less vertices, it's lighter. But still keeping the same shape. Now I'm gonna be selecting this one, these ones here. And this last one, I'm gonna be moving up like this. Ctrl plus on numpad, move it up. Ctrl plus on numpad, move it up. Once again, this is according to my character's hairstyle. If your character's hairstyle is different, you can try to follow the same idea, but according to what's gonna be necessary for your character. Here, I'm going for something curly, in between curly and wavy. This is not completely curly like an afro hair, but this is not completely wavy, you know? So it's something in between. So I'm gonna be adjusting this. And this bottom part, I'm gonna be selecting this one first here and press Alt S0. And then I'm gonna be pressing Ctrl plus a few times. Alt S, Ctrl minus on numpad, Alt S, Ctrl minus, Alt S, and basically I'm gonna be gradually scaling down the size of the hair until I get to the tip of it. This is what I usually do for hairs. So this is the main reference hair for my character at least, and I'm gonna be starting to create my character's hair from here. And I'm gonna be starting by the front part, which is gonna be around here. I'm gonna press A, Alt S, and make it a bit thicker, slash on numpad, and I'm gonna be placing it according to the reference and to this little thing here that I created to use as a little reference. And now it's gonna be kind of boring, but it's gonna be the whole process. We're gonna be placing it, going to the edit mode, moving it around according to the model sheet and according to the hairstyle, of course. Move around, A, Ctrl T to rotate like this. This can be useful. So you can press Alt S to make it thicker or less thick. And basically create a shape similar to a hair. It's not that difficult. Always make sure the root is inside the head because this is going to be making things easier and better looking because, well, roots are usually inside the head, you know, that's how things are. So I'm going to be doing the same thing here. This is just one little part. I mean the first. Now I'm gonna be selecting this same object, pressing Shift D, moving down just a bit, scale it down just a bit too, edit mode, and I'm gonna be selecting these vertices and deleting them and moving this around a bit to the front like this. Select the last vertex, Alt S0 to make it thinner, and I'm gonna be moving around according to the reference. And it's gonna be basically just that. Now, you can have a character with different hairstyles and different shapes. I'm not gonna be able to completely help you with that because, as I said, it is too personal. It involves your taste and your character style. But about creating the curves and hair, it's gonna be the same process. If your character has a symmetrical hair, like in my case, you can follow my idea and do the same thing, but according to your character hairstyle. If it is not symmetrical, this is gonna be making things a bit harder and heavier, but still easy to follow. So I'm gonna finish placing this little hair here, and I'm gonna be back in a second. I know this is looking blocky, but if we add a modifier of subdivision, it's gonna be looking much better, and we're gonna be using by the end of it, so don't worry. I'm gonna be doing the same process. I'm gonna select the original one, Shift D, duplicate and move around just a bit, scale it down, edit mode, delete some, scale it down the tip, move around according to the hairstyle and to the references. And it's gonna be basically just that. I don't have much to say, especially because, as I said, the characters are too different from each other. My character, maybe it's not the same as yours, so I'm not gonna be able to help you at all. Just give it some tips and say how to do some little stuff. And having that said, I'm gonna be basically placing the hair around and finishing it. So, as you can see, I'm kind of finished with half of the hair. And now I'm gonna be creating some other details, which is gonna be around here. And as you can see, the whole process, it's simply that. We're gonna be duplicating the hair, going to the edit mode, adjusting, rotating, and scaling down the hair until we get something nice based on our character and our model sheet and with the whole hair in general, with the whole hairstyle. And it's basically just that. After here, we're gonna be duplicating all of these hairs by using a mirror modifier. And after that, we're gonna be adding some final details, such those little hairs like this, and some other hairs that are gonna be around the whole hair. Now there's one thing that I want to show you all. I'm gonna be selecting all of these hairs. I'm gonna press slash on numpad. And now I'm gonna be pressing Ctrl J. So we're gonna be gathering all of them into one single object. And now we have gathered them all together. And we're gonna be adding a mirror modifier. So I'm gonna be pressing slash on numpad once again. Select the body. Select the hair. Add modifier, mirror. It's gonna be on x-axis. And the mirror object is going to be the body of our character. So now we can see the full picture of our hair. We still have to adjust it. We're gonna be working on it, creating more details and final details. But this is the general idea and something that's gonna be looking at the end. I have to adjust this part. I really recommend you to fill these gaps, unless your character is like half bald, but it's not my case. So I'm gonna be filling these gaps, creating more hairs in between, because like right here we have one big gap, here we have some other gaps here, and with all of these gaps the hair doesn't seem to have much volume, you know. and I have to fix that. We're gonna just be duplicating the hairs, replacing them around, rotating, scale it, closing the gaps, and then we're gonna be adding the final hairs, which is gonna be these little details, these ones, and some other cool stuff. So here I have the final idea of the hair. It's gonna be something similar to this, but I want to add some more details because this is not looking completely good. As you can see, we have these little hairs here, here, and these others one here, and all of these. And I'm gonna be creating this with the same process. So I'm gonna be selecting, I'm not going to be using the model sheet anymore, so I can hide this. I'm gonna select this one, duplicate, move around, and it's gonna be the same process. We're gonna be moving around, scale it down, placing, creating new hairs, and it's gonna be the same thing, but in this time, it's gonna be for the details itself. So I created these little two details that I'm gonna be using to create these other details here of the hair. So this is gonna be for this, and this is gonna be for these. And now I'm just gonna be placing them around the hair until I get something nice. And after that, I'm gonna be gathering all of them together, and I'm gonna be adding the mirror modifier. It's gonna be the same process. So let's start. So this is the result after I added more details like these little hairs, some other hairs around here, and all the other details. I recommend you to do it too because it looks much better. And also I added a subdivision surface modifier to the hair with a value at 1. And also I added a shade smooth, so now it looks much more smoother and better in general. But for using in the viewport, I'm gonna be hiding the subdivision because this is making things much heavier and lag a lot. So I'm gonna be hiding it. Because having it hidden, it's much better and it makes it run faster on our computer. But it is not going to affect the final render. So I think this is the final hair. I hope you can get something similar to this, even if it's not the same hairstyle. And well, it's basically that. Now, these are the references here. I'm gonna be selecting them, pressing M, new collection, ref.felix, hair curves. I'm gonna hide this new collection and I'm gonna turn off this option here so it's not gonna be appearing in the final render. And I'm gonna be moving it to the main references folder and it's gonna be hidden there. This hair, I'm gonna rename as hair, it's already okay. And I'm gonna be moving it to the Felix Lovejoy body. I'm gonna be pressing Ctrl A, all transforms, right click on mouse, set origin to geometry. Okay, and now we're finished with the hair. Now I'm gonna be showing you some other hair options and ways to create hair if your character doesn't have a symmetrical hair. So I'm gonna be showing you my own models. So this is Mateus, one of my characters, and his hair is the same thing, but you can see that it is not symmetrical. So I don't have a mirror modifier, and also I don't have a subdivision modifier because I didn't think this was useful and necessary for this model. And this other one you can see that is not a curve, but it is a mesh that I duplicated from his head. As you can see, we have a little marking here. I duplicated all of this area and used as a hair, adding a solidifier modifier. And I used to use a subdivision here too, but I deleted it. So this is one type of hair that you can do. Maybe you have a character that is similar to this, so you can do something similar to this. This is Ashley, and as you can see, Well, he looks pretty much like Felix, and that's because Felix is an alternative version of Ashley. Or you can just call him Ash if you want. But his hair, I follow the same idea from the Felix hair. It is the same thing. I used curves, and this one has a modifier, which is the mirror. I can turn it off, and it looks like that, just like we did with Felix. This is Anthony. You can see his hair is not symmetrical, so I'm not using a mirror modifier, and I'm not using a subdivision modifier. I'm not always use that, only when it's necessary. Well, you can see it's not completely symmetrical. Like this area kinda is, but this top part isn't. So I didn't need a mirror modifier. I made all by hand. So this is another type of hair that you can do. This is Jade. And as you can see, her hair is pretty similar to Mateo's hair too, because I did the same thing with this part here. I duplicated from the original mesh of her body, and then I changed the colors, added some modifiers, which is the solidify, and the top part is also non-symmetrical, so I'm not using a mirror modifier, but I'm using a subdivision modifier to make it more smooth when turned on. So this is another type of hair that you can do. And this is Sophia, Anthony's mother. But for her hair, I had a bit of trouble because I have two objects for her hair. We have this one, and we have this one. This one is symmetrical, so I'm using a mirror modifier to do that. If I turn off, we can see that it's actually just half of it. And this other one isn't symmetrical, so I'm not using that. And I couldn't gather all of them together because that would be creating some mess, and I don't want that. So I just kept it like that, and it works just fine. You can do something similar to this too. And of course, you can just keep your character as a bald guy if he doesn't have a hair. It's not a big problem. But let's say that your character has a mustache. You can just duplicate one of those curves, place them around here, and create the mustache according to the mustache of your character, of course. And that's all for this video. We have the whole hair finished. This is the final result. I hope you got something similar to this. Of course, according to your character and to your style. I hope this video was useful and easy to understand, and that you can use this technique to create some other hairs. Don't forget to like, subscribe. If you have any doubts, you can comment down here. I'm gonna be trying to answer you all. And in the next video, we're gonna be creating the rig for our character. So the whole body is basically finished. We just have to create textures, clothes, and rigging. And it's gonna be the next video, the rig. So thanks for watching, and I see you in the next video. Bye.